So, cancer.
Yes.
So forget the textbook definition of cancer. Is it like the failure of the genome itself, or is it basically the, are we talking something fundamental about like what causes cancer? Like, what is cancer in a nutshell? Is it basically the disease of the genome itself?
Anyway, let me start by saying, give my own history. How did I get involved in cancer? So I was a geneticist, and I learned about all these ways you can study DNA and do molecular genetics and do clever things with cells from different people and get some genetic information. And then out of the blue, basically, after I'd been back in Oxford as a professor of genetics, the first professor of genetics formally in Oxford, around about 1977, I was asked, would I be interested in becoming the director of science for what was then the major of two comparable research charities that studied cancer. Mine was called the Imperial Cancer Research Fund. And this was a job that they'd come to me, assuming I might know something about cancer, which I didn't know a lot about, because I was a geneticist and because of the role that genetics almost certainly was playing in what cancer is. So that's how I got into it, that way. And I had to learn a lot about what cancer was very quickly because I was expected, being in charge of an organization.
So how do you define cancer?
How did I find cancer?
No. Define cancer. Like
how would I define cancer?
Yeah.
We start our life from a sperm and an egg meeting from one cell. Cells divide. We have many different sorts of cells in the body. And they use the genetic information that they've inherited from the male and the female in different ways to give you different sorts of tissues. And in a given tissue, for instance, one that I study a lot in the bowel, it's formed of a surface of one particular cell type. And they form crypts, they form little bodies like that. And at the bottom of them is a cell that's called a stem cell because it's the one that divides all the time, produces, it turns over in 4 or 5 days, the whole of this structure of maybe a couple of thousand different cells, different types of cells. Now, what happens, that's when it's under control. Now, what happens when a genetic change can happen in one of those cells, that it starts outgrowing its normal partners in a way that gives you an abnormal growth. That's what a cancer is. A cancer is an abnormal growth of our cells in which they're dividing in a way that they shouldn't.
Why does it happen?
Why does it happen? It happens because the genetic changes occur in those cells at the somatic, what we call the somatic level. So that's not in the cells that produce the egg or the sperm. It's the cells that make up different parts of the body, like the ones at the bottom of this crypt, as we call it in a bowel. And it's simply because of natural selection. It's an evolutionary process within our body of the cells that have genetic changes that gradually give them greater ability to divide and overcome the normal constraints of what's happening. And the reason, in my view, why that happens, it's a disease of older age, not old age, of older age, which was hardly known even into the middle of the 19th century when a German physician first described that it was a disease of cells in that way. So it's a disease that hardly influenced our evolution. And that's because evolution has selected us in such a way that beyond the reproductive age, which is about 40 or 50, mainly if you think of it on the female side, of course, but also on the whole on the male side, there isn't the pressure to maintain a proper living organism after the reproductive age in our evolutionary history. So you get these abnormalities of the way things happen as you grow older, and getting a cancer is one of them. And it can happen in all the different tissues of the body in different ways. So it's fundamentally a genetic disease at the cellular level, but it's also not only mutations which change the language, so you're doing something different, but there are ways in which you can get from having the same language from that one initial cell, you get to lots of different cells. By using the information in different ways, you can get different results. And so that mechanism of whether you switch on in a way a gene's function or not is also can be a stable form of genetic change that helps give rise to cancer.
So it's more like a breakdown of your genome. Is it a failure of the genome?
It's a breakdown of the genome. It's not a breakdown in a way. It's a change in a genome of initially a particular cell, which can then outgrow its normal neighbors. So in that sense, if you can call it a breakdown, but for the cancer cell, it's a huge advantage. It's multiplying up to the disadvantage of the individual in whom it develops.
So, and basically you mentioned that, your research right now is basically using immune therapy.
Yes.